we have an update for the Bridger watch. We're going to be talking about it. We've had updates. We've actually had several updates in the last 2 months. We're going to get into it. We're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about what's improved, what still has opportunity to improve in my mind. Stick with us and we'll get into it. Okay, it has been about 2 months since I got the Bridger watch here, and I have been watching updates roll out. We've had some app updates to like the actual app on the phone. We've had device updates. We have more coming. They have been really good about getting new things out, and each time I have wanted to give it some time in testing each before. And pretty much as I get ready to record another video, with the busyness of life, they drop a new release and I'm like, okay, well, let me test that. However, we've had a little bit of a lull here. It's, I think, been 2 weeks since the last update. New one is coming, probably going to be here. It seems like it always drops on Monday. Like they announce it on Friday, drops on Monday. So my guess is that today is Thursday. In the next couple of days, we're going to get a new update for the watch. They also mentioned that new updates are coming on the phone. We'll talk about what one of the features, one of the new features or fixes, however you want to think about it, addresses something we're going to touch on today. So first off, I think the last time I provided an update, battery was an issue. This is something that I have been seeing get about the first in the first update I was getting about 2 to 3 days, depending on what I did, but about 2 to 3 days before I needed to recharge. I'm seeing that bump up to about 5 to 7. One thing I did notice is that the watch face that I chose had an impact on, it seemingly had an impact, anecdote of one, had an impact on the battery life that I was getting. When I went to a little bit more of a simplified face, they do on the watch have certain faces that are like high power usage. I didn't choose any of those. And yet even still, I was seeing a difference between the watch face I was running and the one that I'm using now, primarily in the elevation tracking. Like that was the main thing. And so I have been getting about 5 to 7 days with regular activity. It was interesting, the email that went out today mentioned 14 days. I can't say that I've seen 14 days of battery life. I've also seen around the 20% mark. The tracking of the watch get unreliable. Like it really, if I saw step discrepancies before that, I would really see them in that last 20%. And that last 20% seemed to just like drop real quick. I went from, I think it was like 26% in one night to 0 the next morning, less than 12 hours or something like that, So some weirdness with batteries still. I think there's some still opportunity for them to fix that. But overall, it is getting better. And so happy to see that. Hopeful that they keep increasing that, and that we start getting to that, 10 days would be pretty amazing, even with moderate usage. Which kind of leads in to the next thing that just has not quite landed. It's better, not quite landed for me yet either, is steps. For, let's see, April, May, I was targeting hitting 7,000 steps a day. I work a desk job. Definitely some days if I do a hike or something like that, I'm going to go over, but there's other days where it's really hard to just hit that 7,000, and that was a goal. I am currently now seeing an average go from an average of about 7,000 steps, maybe average of 6,000 is probably better number, to actually being closer to, what was this one? 3,000. It's still about 50%. I see at times it feel like it's tracking better, and then times where it just doesn't. I have since removed that goal of mine and changed it with with a workout goal on a regular basis per week instead. I have even tried changing the different modes, thinking that maybe that would have had an impact. I tried switching over to the competition mode, uh, and did not see a large impact there either. Kind of bummed about that. Also, I didn't really see a big impact on battery life as a whole in competition mode, so that was kind of an interesting note. That it kind of seems that running the watch in smart mode and in competition mode basically was getting me around the same. I only did it for a couple days, but the fact that over those couple days it felt like it had zero impact. I was basically seeing about 10 to 15% of battery life diminish a day. It felt pretty much exactly the same. I would really love them to see them improve steps. It just is a pretty big discrepancy still from what I was seeing on Garmin. Overall, the heart rate monitor, I for the most part just kind of ignore it during a workout. It's kind of nice to see, but overall just let it be. However, there are times where it can go a little bit wacko, and it will just like start repeatedly triggering and saying like, hey, your heart rate's over this. Like the other day I was doing a workout. Usually it's when I'm doing a workout and stuff like I start to get sweaty, it interrupts the sensor and causes the sensor to wig out essentially. um, but I was literally doing a workout, my heart rate's at like 150, and it's like, your heart rate is way high for resting. I'm like, I am clearly not resting. I would have expected that it would, one, understand that I'm doing an activity. I'm literally tracking the activity. Two, that once it gets into this like loop, I pretty much have to take the watch off, wipe the sensor off, and then I can put it back on, and it like recalibrates and stops being crazy. That is a thing that has been a little weird. Otherwise, I really am not checking in and monitoring heart rate on a regular basis. It's more just an annoyance. Like, I can live with it being that way personally, but would love to see it be different. Offline maps. They have expanded the area in which you are getting a map of. What I have noticed is that the UI in the actual iPhone app has not updated for that. And so you think you're getting one size, and then you'll end up having a much bigger size, which is great. They went from 10 to 15, but essentially they went from a smaller area to 50% bigger. But the viewport of what you are seeing is not what you actually get, from what I can tell. And two, once you get that map and you go to, like when I go hunting, I might be covering a huge area. I will want to have like offline maps for all of these different areas within this one general area, right? Like, I think this is pretty common. You're going to have like 10-mile differences between areas and stuff like that. And what I found is that it becomes really challenging. They have no indication of what you have downloaded previously. So I've literally had to have Onyx up on my computer and be like comparing topo lines and like major landmarks, mountaintops and stuff like that, to be like, okay, I have downloaded that. I went to about here and next, now download the next. It sounds like they have improved that. There was something they specifically called out as having a dotted area around the areas that you have already downloaded as offline. That's great. Like, that's going to be super helpful. Missing that feature made it pretty challenging to grab these maps quickly. It became a extra step in the ordeal. The other thing about offline maps is that you need an internet connection. The watch itself goes, like, you save them on your phone, and you know essentially it generates on the phone, but then goes and pings their server to prepare those maps for you to send to your watch, and then you tell it on the watch to go, you establish an internet connection via Wi-Fi on the watch and tell it to go get those maps. Doing this in the field is complex. Maybe if you have decent signal, you could hotspot. I have tried that unsuccessfully. I did not have decent signal. But I had like 1 or 2 bars, and it could not get them in a reasonable amount of time. If you were running something like a Starlink, maybe that would be fine, I think. But that's a pretty big challenge. You need to know where you plan on going, or else you are kind of going to be SOL and not have the maps for the area that you're going to be. The other thing I will say about that is it takes a really long time to download those maps. Generally speaking, after doing moderate hunting areas, I'm seeing somewhere between an hour and a half to like 3 hours between the download and then the decompression of the map. It takes a while. I think I've even had one that's taken up to like 4 or 5 hours. Like literally went to bed with it just like continuing to download and decompress maps, and eventually sometime I woke up to use the bathroom and it was done. A little rough. Do it ahead of time. That's the biggest thing I can say right now. The showing the maps that you've downloaded is going to at least make it a little bit easier to do this ahead of time. Do it kind of like in spurts versus needing to do it all at once, because you needed to remember what ones you had already gotten. On another side with maps, right now, when you record tracks, they don't really appear on the device. Importing tracks to the device they don't show up. And if you are actively recording a track on the device, it doesn't show up. It just goes, like once you're done, it goes straight to the phone. And I guess you would need to import that to Onyx or something like that. It makes recording tracks on the device not very useful in my mind. As of right now, unless something drastically changes, I plan on recording tracks on my phone like I always have, and using the device as more of here's like a little bit of a check-in, but also like here's what I'm planning on doing. Like here are the waypoints that I'm planning on going to. Here's where I parked my truck. Is probably the most important thing. Like that is a waypoint that I will set on my watch specifically if it doesn't match up to where I had planned to do it on Onyx, in like the hunt plan that I made. Speaking of waypoints, I had a lot of trouble with this. It was, I think I mentioned in the last video, I was having a ton of trouble getting those waypoints onto the device. What I found was, at the time, I probably mentioned this on the last video, I was running a Garmin on one wrist and the Bridger on the other. And that was seeming to cause a conflict between the two. I literally had to turn the Garmin off, because the other thing is, if you just disconnect it on the phone, it will pretty much reconnect right away. So I had to turn the Garmin off completely. And then all of a sudden, all the waypoints started working fine for me. Worth noting that sync could be interrupted by some other Bluetooth devices that you might have connected. Let's talk about the import real fast, I guess. The way you import is you do an export from Onyx of a folder or a set of waypoints or what have you, and as either a KML file or I forget the other type. I want to say it's GMZ. Anyway, the point is that you export them from Onyx desktop only, and then you can import them to the app. You got to send them over to your phone via iCloud files, or some sort of way. You got to get them over to your phone, airdrop them over, what have you. Then essentially import them into the Bridger Watch app, then send them over to the watch. It's kind of an ordeal. I like what they're doing over there. I appreciate the things. I do take a little bit of an issue, and I think there are people that are taking a lot of issue, to be honest, with this premise of it integrates with Onyx. I would not call this an integration right now. They have talked about that integration coming, like where you conceptually would be able to add a waypoint on Onyx and have it push over to your phone in the field. That is something I would call an integration. This is not an integration. This is like a sharing feature. Yes, you can get your waypoints over there. As someone who works in software, that doesn't feel integrated. I've talked with enough people now to know that most people agree that it feels disingenuous. Like I said, lots of things I like about this company. I like what they're doing. I want to support them, but also like, come on. Let's be honest about where things are. Again, my understanding is an Onyx integration, a true integration, is coming. It's not here yet though. The other thing I'll say is like they made that deal with Onyx in like late March or early March. I'm sorry, early March or late February. So like I was not necessarily under the impression that it would be this like two-way sync or even one-way sync in the field. But it is pretty tough, and not many share the same level of grace that I might for the understanding of that term and kind of like what people thought they were getting versus what we have right now with waypoints. Um, Not an integration. You send waypoints over. You need to have a desktop version of Onyx running to do that export. You can't do it from the mobile device that I have seen. Maybe I'm missing it, but I try and know Onyx pretty well, and I have not seen that capability. On top of that, you need a Wi-Fi connection. Maybe. I could be wrong on that. You might just need a Bluetooth connection, but the likelihood of being able to do all this in the field, it's not seamless. I mean, you would have to like sit down at lunch or something like that and do it, even if you could do that export. Um, so all of that to say, the waypoints that you export before you leave the house essentially are going to be the waypoints you probably are going to have unless you're, bringing along a computer, running Onyx off an internet connection in the field, getting off of a Starlink or something like that. You would need like a legit mobile setup type thing. Last thing with maps, there are times where you don't have maps enabled. For example, you're at your house, you go to a new place, you turn on maps, and you are still at home. uh, the watch is basically reaching out, trying to triangulate itself based off of the GPS satellites, is my understanding. It's trying to connect to. While it's doing all of this, it's not clear that the watch is doing anything. What it looks like is that you're just stuck for some reason in the place that you are not right now, and nothing that you really do necessarily triggers that. I have seen the zoom in and out functions maybe help a little bit with that. It might just be anecdotal. I have talked with them. They agree that they need to add some sort of loading, or like getting a signal, something to indicate that the watch is like trying to triangulate your position and make an update. There have been times where I have literally just started hiking and not seen that update for a good 10 or 15 minutes into my hike. Not great. I don't know if there's anything that they can do to make that faster, but definitely I don't know. Definitely would love to be able to manually say like, "Oh, hey, I am here instead," or I don't know. There are like a couple things I could come up with like that, where like you're either scrolling to that area. That could really suck depending on how far away you are. You would think that on a regular basis is getting some connection, so you think you would be able to be not so far, but that's not the case. It's like always last position that was open type thing. Um, you know, Whether you could say like, hey, I'm at this waypoint, take me here and just show me the map around it, something. So I would love to see something about that change. Some sort of loading indicator would also be helpful with that. These will all be, I think, good improvements to that map experience, particularly right when you open it up in a new area. The last thing that I have noticed as an annoyance, and I think, honestly, I can't imagine that it doesn't play into some of the battery issues that we see. Anytime you leave the range of your phone, uh, and this, I guess this comes into play, that the connection from the phone to the watch is way better than it used to be, and the watch is consistently reconnecting to the phone without you having to do anything, which you had to do before. So that's a huge improvement. But when that happens, it resends all the notifications that you had previously gotten and that were like stored up that hadn't been cleared back to the watch. Even sometimes the ones that had been, like if you've manually cleared it off the watch, it will send those notifications if those notifications are still like on your home screen. I'm pretty bad about clearing off not the home screen, the I forget what they call that, the notification screen. I'm pretty bad about clearing those off. I've gotten way better now. But they'll resend to the watch. So all of a sudden you'll just get this flood, like you'll walk out of range of your phone, come back to it, and all of a sudden you'll get this like flood of notifications. Can't be good for the battery. Like that's Bluetooth for sure being pinged. And like in the documentation that they have shared with me about how battery life is affected, like one of the things is like notifications to the watch impacting battery life. And so like it's one of the metrics that they measure of like 100 notifications to the watch a day and X amount of glances and interactions and such. So to be honest, I would love for a way to basically say like I want no notifications to my watch except for messages. Messages? I don't know. Let's pick a handful of apps and just say like these apps alone go to my watch. To be honest, the Apple Watch is the only watch that I have seen do that. Like Garmin did the same. It was either kind of an all or nothing thing. So maybe that's not even something that is an open API for them to use. I don't know on that. I haven't done the research to look into that. What I do know is that the resync, like getting notifications sent again, that definitely sucks. That if there was a way that we could turn that off, turn off like secondary updates for the same notification, anything like that would be super helpful. So where do we stand all together? I'm excited that I'm continuing to see improvements from the team. I think there's still, as I say, there's tons more way that they can go. I'm hopeful for where we're going. They're just getting ready to drop a new batch of watches. I will speak for myself and say, would I buy this watch again knowing what I know today? I think the answer is yes. Again, I still love being part of really what I would call this is the beta. Like they're still in beta phase. I enjoy being part of that and working with their team over mostly it's all been over email for me. But they have their phone number, if you want to call them and stuff like that. I've enjoyed working with their team and recommending improvements, being part of the creation of this, but that's not for everyone. And so you can kind of make that decision for yourself. I think the biggest thing to note is Onyx integration is not what I would call an integration today. That's probably the biggest thing that I have seen, the biggest frustration. What I did see some people saying like, oh, it's not Onyx on the watch, it's Mapbox. Y'all, Mapbox is a mapping service. It's like literally Mapbox, ESRI, or Google Maps. Like those are the mapping services out there. Onyx is using Mapbox as their like topo. Yes, you don't have the Onyx layers on here. You don't have all the things. I don't know that that's ever coming necessarily. My hope is that I see if I'm in the field and I add a waypoint on my phone, that gets pushed over to the watch. That would be amazing. And that's kind of what I'm hoping for. And then we get to say like, oh, I want to go here. And then, I want to go here. And then be able to look at that on the watch and be like, oh, there it is. And now I'm going that way and we'll just follow. I do know that there's a lot of confusion over over these things. I think when you say that there's an integration with Onyx, it leads to a lot of opportunity for misinterpretation, and there have been lots of people that have like misinterpreted that to the max, to some extent, I would argue unjustifiably, but the reality is that now the team has to deal with it. Ultimately, I'm looking forward to what's to come. I think they're making improvements. You have to make the decision yourself of whether or not this is something that is worth it to you. If you're willing to take some of the health tracking hits, from like a Garmin or I think Whoop is like I don't think anything compares to the Whoop from my understanding, having used one, but like every time I hear about it, it's like tracks this and tracks that and tracks this, and you can tells you if you sneezed at night and all this stuff, and this is far from that. So you have to make those choices for yourself. I still think it's going to be a helpful tool in hunting season as it is today, just not as helpful as if we see further integration with the waypoints I'm adding on the phone in the field. Hopefully this helps you. Maybe you're just curious about kind of how it's advancing. Maybe you have one and you're trying to gauge whether or not you end up selling it or not. All I can do is just share my experiences and some of the things that I've seen as benefits, some of the things that I think are improvement areas. It gets really hard to make like tutorials for these things because they're like updating it so quick that it's like you make a tutorial a couple weeks and it's different. So I haven't done that. I've kind of preferred to just do these update videos until it stabilizes a little bit. Maybe we'll do specifically a maps one as we get closer to hunting. We'll see. As we see more updates, I will try and put out more of these videos, time permitting. When they come fast and furious, it feels like I don't even get a chance to like try things out or feel like how it's working before the next update comes. And it's like, well, I want to include that in the vibes if I don't get a video out fast enough. Thank you for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, and we'll catch you next time. Peace.